You give them a task and they go off and do it.
It's really hypey.
Just like you would use a web browser.
The vaguest word that exists.
We think this is going to be a big trend in AI.
Everybody disagrees about it.
This is an early research preview. We got a lot of improvements to do. We'll make it better. We'll make it cheaper. We'll make it more widely available. But we really want to put it in people's hands.
Which I love, I love that they bring it out, give us access earlier, even if it's bad. Everybody wants to be part of that loop and try it and use it and comment it and think about where this is all going. Anyway, we'll see it. We'll watch together. And I will comment as we go along. So OpenAI made their big, well, I don't know if they wanted it to be big, but they made a release yesterday, and it's getting big. Right now, to give you an example, there are already 400,000 views on their YouTube live stream. And so this is the first time that I guess OpenAI really talks very, very concretely about operator and agents, I guess, as a product.
Good morning. We've got something exciting for you today. We're going to launch our first agent. AI agents are AI systems that can do work for you independently.
So already here from the get-go, we have something interesting. AI systems work independently. Work can be defined very broadly. Independence independently can be defined very broadly. Systems, I mean, system is like the vaguest word that exists. AI is not better defined. Everybody disagrees about it. So Sam gives us a definition here, but it is comprised of 4 words that we're not too sure what they mean, or actually they can be comprehended, or they can be used and they can be understood very differently. There's a big debate about what an agent is. There are people that say, chat are agents, say chat agent. Or some people would say that, no, you call it only an agent when it's like acting not almost like a security agent, like a FBI agent, like it's a humanoid robot going through life that can do everything a human can do. And so the continuum of what is an agent or what could it be is really broad, and that's probably why there is so much debate about what it means and what is an agentic workflow. Right now, I we have the chats interface, which has entered kind of the public imagination and public discourse, but there's something just beyond that, and we need to give it a name. Here they chose to call it operator or agent. So we already have that. It's interesting that I've seen some posts already of some people saying, okay, so this is Sam's definition. Do you agree with it? Would you use it? Do you like it? A lot of people say they were already using it that way, but then it's probably why a lot of people disagree, because when I start to call, hey, this is my tool and I'm using agents, then people don't like it and they feel like it's really hypey.
You give them a task and they go off and do it. We think this is going to be a big trend in AI and really impact the work people can do, how productive they can be, how creative they can be, what they can accomplish. We're starting today with Operator. Operator is a system that can use a web browser, in this case a web browser in the cloud, to accomplish tasks that you give it. And we'll show you a demo in just a second, but it's really quite cool what it can do.
So they chose to do a web browser in the cloud, okay? This was an interesting decision, probably a wise one, or at least it's in contrast with computer use from Anthropic, or with some open source work and library. So Operator now is doing 87% on a big academic benchmark for using browser. And there's this library called Browser Use, and they are doing better, and they existed before, and they're free, and they're MIT licensed, and they are taking different decisions. Like they won't be running in the cloud for you. You would have to set it all up on your machines, and that would be one reason why it's less popular, because you need to be quite technical to go use it. Well, they focus on the browser. The browser can do a lot of things. Like even if you do things in apps right now, let's say you have your Outlook app or your PowerPoint app, well, they now have browser-based versions. So it's not limiting a lot. And most apps nowadays are delivered with front-end browser technology, even if they are local apps. So that's not very limiting, and so that means that most things you're already gonna be able to do most things, but it gives them some type of specialization. They can specialize on one type of operating system, the browser, instead of having to cover Mac, Windows, and Linux. So this seems like a kind of pragmatic decision. That's fine. That's good. Then in the cloud. Okay, so in contrast to what Anthropic did when they showed us computer use, they decided that they are giving us a service of hosting the computer that will be launching the browser, that will be having the agent in there and doing the work. So that has the advantage, the clear advantage of doing a sandbox environment. It's really separate from your own environment. There's kind of no way for this agent to affect your own computer and your own system. They could affect your own accounts online though, but they do things according for this to address this. And this is there's quite a bit of engineering to do that, and that is actually a service that could explain why a lot of people would use that instead of this MIT library I just showed you, where you have to do everything yourself. Like if you build a software once and you host it on your system, which are Linux system, which are more flexible, easier to build fast without much of an interface, you're gonna progress faster than if you have to deliver it on all types of hardwares and systems across the world with native applications and the browser per se. And so the ChatGPT app online does not let you go drive and control all the other pages and the whole browser for different security reasons. And so that would be why, that would be my guess as to why they chose to do this like that.
Just like you would use a web browser, you can get pixels in, you can look at a screen and control, an operator can do that and then control the keyboard and the mouse and do all sorts of things. This is going to go live today in the United States for pro users, and it'll be other countries soon. Europe will unfortunately take a while.
It's a large language model, basically, that receives a screenshot, then predicts, is tuned and specialized, and let's say maybe system prompted to output only very specific snippet of code that can then be taken by a program, run, and then it's transformed into an action. And then after the action is taken, another screenshot is taken. Models create a lot of, thinking tokens, analyzes, make sure that it's performing better than if it's kind of just one shot the action, and then give again some specific command that can be run on the computer. This is slow and expensive, like expensive for sure. Like in computing and neural network, the size of the neural network, they need to do that. The quality, like it's just expensive, but it's general. It's very general. The other kind of issue, a problem, but I'm not too sure about this one, is they're using image as input, and an image, in my experience, would have around 1,000 to 10,000 tokens as input. They can probably downgrade the quality of the image by quite a lot. But if you're given an image, you're missing a lot of information. We know as humans what are buttons. Like we are able to learn which button to click on a website, but the first time we approach an app, sometimes we have to kind of, hover or mouse around to see what has some interactivity. So here they don't have, they don't use video, and they don't use kind of this live, like real animated type of way of driving, like really kind of live loop to control the computer. It's really like screenshot, thinking, action, screenshot, thinking, action. This is how they're doing it. This is also how computer use does it, and it's, I think, from Anthropic, and I believe it's what this library I showed you does it too. The library I showed you, what is interesting is that they seem to be using some type of image segmentation and popping up, and they're kind of pre-processing the image, which probably is one of the reasons why they have a better performance. Image can be expensive, like it's quite a lot of token to go in, but the HTML code or the code behind a website, which you could give to a model and say like, hey, based on this code, like pick an action or write some code to do the next browser action. And this works. I've tested it. I've used it. But this is also expensive. Like a web page can be 25,000 tokens because there's so much crap in the HTML. And so in both directions, if we want to control a computer or control the browser, maybe one other advantage to go from pixels is that then you're ready to move outside of the browser where maybe you don't have access to the front-end code as we do in browsers. But anyway, I think they're both the worst and the least and the most expensive you're ever gonna get. And And the reason is that there is a lot of empty, uninteresting information in a browser page, like a lot of white pixels, a lot of black pixels or whatever. I predict, or it would be efficient, I'm quite convinced of that, to develop a very, very, very specialized neural net that takes in a screen information and turns that into kind of a list of salient features and action you can do and information, like a really condense a web page from the whole like full of complexity thing and full of pixels and full of informations and code about a lot of things in the front end, and then condense that in really like just a short list of like 12 things. Like there were 4 buttons to click, name XYZ, and there is a header with that name, there is a block of text. I'm not giving you the text unless you ask for it or whatever, those type of things. And then you can probably do the loop of iterating and going through and doing your tasks with maybe inputs of 100 tokens instead of 1,000, 5,000, 20,000. So that would be like maybe 20x gain in efficiency, 20x reduction in cost. They also said, this brings me to that point, that it's going to be available to the users that pay $200 a month and only in the US. And so if in the future we can go for 20x improvement, that is only $10 a month. So that can start to be interesting. And if it costs less compute, it's also faster by 20x. So now it's starting to be really exciting. So it's just the beginning. The future would be nice. Yeah, and also they're not the only one. Anthropic has delivered the same thing. Maybe they were a bit less kind of consumer focused in their release. They were more developer focused and community focused in their release. And there is this MIT license library that does that same, it's more like research and developers and everybody, for all that we know, maybe behind the scene, OpenAI are using it and they're doing some things for security or whatever, which actually hurt the performance, and that's why they perform as they do in the benchmark. We don't know.
And we'll also in the coming months make it available to Plus users. This is an early research preview. We've got a lot of improvements to do. We'll make it better, we'll make it cheaper, we'll make it more widely available. But we really want to put it in people's hands. We'll also have more agents to launch in the coming weeks and months. But that said, we'll talk more later. So excited, just want to show you a demo. I'll hand it over to Yash.
Great, thanks, Sam. Hi, I'm Yash. This is Casey, that's Ray, and we work on the computer using agent team. And we're so excited to show you Operator today. As Sam said, Operator is an early research preview. It will do a lot of cool things. It also makes mistakes, sometimes embarrassing ones. But let's show you what Operator can do.
I just want to emphasize that they say, it will make mistakes. It's the worst it's ever been. It is a research preview, okay? They are not doing a release that you would be doing for something you think is a research preview. They are not pricing it the way you would price a demo or a research preview. So their actions doesn't follow their words, but they protect themselves. They say, it's a research preview. Don't get mad at us if it's not good. Don't tell us we are doing hype. We told you it's just research preview and we try to bring it fast to the community, which I love. I love that they bring it out. I love they give us access earlier, even if it's bad. We want to, everybody wants to be part of that loop and try it and use it and comment it and think about where this is all going. I guess the only difference is that their actions and the way they sell it as a really finished, polished, like it's almost an Apple release. And there are other ways to release that, as we've seen from how, AI Studio from Google released things, how Anthropic released things, and how Anthropic released those things. They didn't go too crazy about it. So anyway, just re-emphasizing, it is research preview, and it is for real research preview. I've seen some comments online like it's not really useful. It's not like someone said, it's like Sora. I tried it a day, tried it once. I'll never use it again. Going with programming, access, and cursor and coding. Programming is key with LLMs, and this is still the way to go control a computer right now. This is just research. This is not right now the productive way. If you want to, you're in business, you want to do something, this is not the way you want to accomplish this right now.
Okay, so this is the Operator homepage. It lives at operator.chatgpt.com. It'll be accessible as soon as the live stream is over. And as you can see, the interface is very similar to ChatGPT. You can type in a prompt, and an operator will try to execute the task to the best of its capability. You'll also see we have a list of pre-filled prompts here. These are not really meant to be recommendations. These are meant to be things that, to give you an idea of what Operator can do. We have also collaborated with various brands like OpenTable, AllRecipes, StubHub, Uber, Thumbtack.
I've seen a lot of comments online, and I think the same, that it's a little sad how trivial and silly the tasks and the examples were chosen. It's really, there's nothing about productivity there, which is where we would be excited about it. Mostly, they said, like Sam just opened up by saying, it can transform the way you're being productive and do things. And then they're like showing really silly chores and tasks that they're not big things in life that you have to do. They could have shown, kind of someone trying to turn a Word into a PowerPoint, and then the operator goes and click around, maybe doing something about responding to an email, about, collecting information, like doing desk research online and then responding to an email. Those type of things would have been like, kind of substantial, but still wide and general public. They don't realize that what is common knowledge and used by everybody around them is not known to the rest of the world, and they do a release that is really like, worldwide. Like in Canada here, we don't use Instacart. We don't know what is OpenTable. We don't have apps to do as many things as they have in San Francisco. They like live in a very different bubble. We can see the effort to do something so general, but then they by using very silly example, but then they use that using some very narrow, geographically specific things that only work if this kind of website provider is known in your area. So this is a little critique.
eBay, Target, to make sure Operator really works well on these websites, but also we think users will find Operator very valuable in interacting with these platforms. So with that, let's jump in with a demo. Okay, so I'm gonna start with something fairly simple.
So again, they think users will find it very valuable interacting with those platforms. No, not the platform I've seen. Show PowerPoint, show Excel, show emails, show Outlook, Gmail, show Salesforce, show those types of things. Show Workday. Don't show OpenTable.
Simple. I'm going to use OpenTable and say, book me a table for 2 at Beretta tonight at 7 p.m. Okay.
And so you specifically chose OpenTable here.
Yeah, in this case, I'm asking Operator to use OpenTable to book a table for 2 at Beretta. Beretta is a restaurant in San Francisco. It's great. You should try it out. And at 7 p.m. And I'm using OpenTable in this case, but I could have easily said, just do Beretta, and it would have probably gone to search engine, figured out how to make a reservation as well. But let's see what it does.
So can you explain what's happening in this?
Yeah, right. So I'm going to expand this a little bit. So as soon as I typed in the query, Operator instantiated a completely remote browser. This browser is running in the cloud somewhere. And as you can see, it's already up and running. And my hands are off the keyboard. I'm not typing these things.
So this is just the AI's clicking around.
AI is just clicking around. It started this browser session. It knew where OpenTable website is, which is opentable.com. As you can see, it's summarized chain of thought here as well, which is it's gone to the URL, searched for Beretta. And something cool really happened, which is for some reason, OpenTable thought we were in Virginia, and it auto-corrected itself to San Francisco. This is using, so like ChatGPT, in Operator, you can also give custom instructions. So I'm going to show this really quickly here. Okay. So I've given a custom instruction that for queries that need it, I live in San Francisco. So Operator recognized that and then auto-corrected itself to go to Beretta. Okay, looks like 7 p.m. isn't available, but you know what? 7:45 is just fine. So we're going to go do that. So in this case, Operator came back, and this is a really good example of task delegation where Operator needs help or needs assistance or just wants to ask you something. It'll just come back and answer that query.
So in practice, you wouldn't have had to watch this. You could have just let it go off while you're doing other things, then it would come back and say, hey, I can't do 7:45.
Totally.
Yeah. Great.
And we're starting with a web app. You'll get notifications, etc. When
this coming back to get feedback is actually something that is that normal chat AI don't do enough. They just sometimes go too much on and give an answer, but actually they needed 7 pieces of information to really do good work, and they don't come back enough with clarifying questions. Early, it's not in the phone, but there's this vision of, notifications and all those things. So if it can runs like, like they say, it runs in the background, come back to you, when it gets there, when it's good enough. It's probably not good enough right now to be that, but when it is, you could have those, a lot of people do those very manual, tedious tasks on the computer because, let's say every 7 minutes there is a real need for human, and because they just don't have also the technical skills to automate the task. And so not having the technical skills to automate the tasks, they just do it. They go through the task, they do those 7 minutes of clicking, and then at some point there is like one kind of higher value human input there, and then they go on, there's even more clicking afterwards, and on and on. Well, in the future, in the not so far future, we could set this task like, 100 in parallel, and then that, that 7 minute now is the density of that is really high in a worker's day because they don't do the clicking, but they just do the interacting with the part that is actually special for the human input. So this is really cool. This is, a thing I could imagine people working. Another thing that I see a lot of value in is that now this becomes something that can build a training set and that can be leveraged to then automate the tasks. If you have 100, 1,000 examples on how you went through this loop, let's say of clicking 7 steps and then having one input, if you have that and you collect a lot of image information, maybe the front end code, maybe the edge cases, and you analyze that and you compile that with a workflow of AI systems, then you can probably have an AI that writes code to automate that system. And so then you go from this very, very expensive, huge neural net working on, $100 of compute an hour that you could rent and taking lots of energy to code something that runs in a fraction of a second deterministically at the places where it is deterministic. And then maybe you fine tune a model for those like little parts where you have edge cases that it's too hard to code this deterministic algorithm, but you put this tiny 1B model that is fine tuned, maybe even smaller, do that step. And then maybe you collect it all into kind of a dashboard that is really dense for human input. And then the human goes and like give its input on like kind of as a CEO, like taking decision, yes, you go with that. No, yes, no, yes, maybe go deeper, redo that. Those types of input. This is the future. This is where this is going. Again, they're not the only one doing that. They're not the only one working on it. They are not really more advanced than others, but they're pitching it in a sexy way that brings it to the attention of a lot of people. And that can that can get us having this conversation, which I think is very, very helpful.
Operator moves into mobile, you'll get mobile notifications, much like interactions we do with general apps. Okay, yes, that's great. Let's do it. Okay, so again, very simple interaction as you would have with an assistant, which is, hey, I found reservations, 7 p.m. wasn't available, let's do 7:45. And again, you can see operator at this point has said, okay, should I? Again, this is a really good example of the confirmations work we're going to talk about a little bit later. But before doing an action, which is sort of irreversible in this case, you can cancel the reservation, obviously. But again, taking a critical action, operator is asking us before actually doing it. And in this case, I'm going to say, let's do it. Okay, it was pretty quick. I would say 50 seconds. And again, we were watching in this case, etc. But as Sam said,
you could kick off 10
kick
of
it
these,
off and go on. Okay, so let's try something. Oh, unfortunately, that table is no longer available. So it's going to probably go and find alternative time slots. Oh, that's kind of cool, actually. That's never happened before.
Live demos, man.
Yeah, that's great. Let's do 8:15. Okay, while it's doing that, how about we try something a little bit more complicated?
Oh, with groceries.
Yeah, I love groceries. So I've been using Operator to shop all my groceries. I love to cook.
Okay, so we're going to go faster here. We're going to skip ahead. Basically, take a screenshot of grocery list, ChatGPT 4.0, transform that into a list, transform that into tasks, goes around in Instacart, pick things. And then we're going to jump to something that's a little different.
And
talk a little about the research behind it. So Operator is based on a new model we've trained at OpenAI, which we're calling the Computer Using Agent, or CUA for short. So CUA is a model built off of GPT 4.0, but it's also trained to use and control a computer in the same way that humans can by just looking at the screen and using a mouse and keyboard to control it.
So Kua, new model based on 4.0, GPT 4.0. This means it's a fine tune. They had GPT 4.0, they have this existing model, they fine tune it with different examples and training set. They already were multimodal, where you put an image, it's transformed into tokens, it comes into the model, it's able to use it. And so likely what they did is that they did a lot of those examples, a lot, is it 1,000? Is it 100,000? Is it 1,000,000? Probably around 100,000, I would guess. And then they build a training set where you would have examples of a human giving a tasks, then you would have screenshots, outputs of what should be done. And the outputs would be, like I said, those kind of, there would be thinking and in the loop, because we see a lot of thinking. And then it would give outputs that would be commands that can be executed in existing software in Linux.
Before, if you wanted to build something like Operator without Kua, you'd need to use some specialized APIs. For example, if you wanted your model to buy stuff from Instacart, you'd need to figure out if Instacart had an API. You'd need to figure out if that API had all the functions that it needed, and you need to give your model the specs of that API. But if your site, like most other websites, did not have an API, then you're out of luck.
So this is just using screenshots, no API, nothing, just
no
working.
API, yes. And that's where Kua comes in. By teaching a model how to use the same basic interface that we use on a daily basis, it just unlocks a whole new range of software that it can use that was previously inaccessible.
And so this is keyboard and mouse, right? It's kind of using keyboard and mouse just
Exactly.
like human would.
Yes. And that's really what the Kua research project is about. It's about removing one more bottleneck in our path towards AGI and letting our agents move around and act in the digital world. So let's make that a little bit.
So again, research preview and stuff, but now that was a big pitch, big sentence here. This is what, the project is about, removing one other step in our path to AGI. So going from this very specific and selling it with really, really broad words. They're not false. They're just not anything you should go crazy about, It's not exactly true that most websites don't have an API. Well, it's both true and not. It's true in the sense that most sites don't have this kind of open RESTful API that they give you a token and they have documentations on how to use it and all those things. But most sites, the way they're built is that you have a backend and a front end. The front end is what you see in your browser and it has code in JavaScript that calls something in the back to have actions on a server. And that something in the back is an API. Most cases, almost always. You can have front-end only websites, but those are not really apps and they don't do as much in terms of interactivity and work. And so most sites has this backend API that if you start to use and look at the code and the network requests that are happening in your browser, which you can do, you can start to kind of deduce what's the API. And if the website can do the task, you can do the tasks. It is always completely possible to do everything your website does in the browser JavaScript console, and this is then doable without a human if you have a browser emulator like Selenium, which they're likely using here. So it's not true that you have to be front end. It's not true that most websites don't have an API. It is true that it is easier to fine-tune and train most likely on Pixel, and it is more general. It is more expensive, but it's more general. And so when they talk about AGI, general intelligence, general action in the world, agents that can do anything, for sure using pixels, front end, keyboard, mouse, using the human controls, the controls that human do is one part of the puzzle, is a thing we want to have. Same as we want humanoid robot, just because maybe you can make a robot that vacuums better if it's not in the humanoid form. But if it is in the humanoid form, you can have it pick up the existing tools and the thing you have in your house, which is a vacuum. Or let's say more in something more useful. I have a farm. I have a 50-year-old tractor. Well, with a humanoid robot, my 50-year-old tractor can become an automated tractor, self-driven and everything, because the humanoid can just jump in my place in the driver's seat and do anything. So this is similar to that, but it is not always going to be. It is for sure almost never going to be the cheapest and most efficient ways of doing things. It is going to be an expensive and general way of doing things that may be in the path of always kind of going through the loop of collecting data, building a specialized system, then applying it millions of times in a specialized way. If your tasks are one-offs, then that's perfect. But there are not a lot of tasks that are actually one-offs when you talk about doing a task for 8 billion people. So here we jumped ahead.
Okay, so what I can do at this point, and I'm going to just click this button called Take Control. So this remote, as we were talking about, like Operator fires up this remote browser to do it. We almost think of it as a surface area where Operator can work and then I can work. For example, in this case, I took over control from Operator, which is also key to sort of how we think about user and user controls. Like at any point in time, a user should be able to take control and give Operator instructions or tell a little bit more, guide a little bit more, etc.
It's like passing the laptop back and forth, just like you did with Ray.
Totally, exactly right. Just like, in this case, I'm going to make those two.
Okay, so just, they have thought about that and they have implemented it in their interface. This is smart. This is something I think is a good move and is necessary. The model needs to give back control. You need to be able to jump into the task and then be able to continue. This is actually the same type of reasons why I feel some friction sometimes in the chat interface, especially when they give me code, because most chat interface, except the one I really love, OpenWeb UI, they don't let you edit the code that the model gave you, and sometimes they don't let you also edit the response at all from the AI model. And that makes it so that you cannot take control. And if the model did a mistake, you cannot kind of just go correct its typo and you continue the conversation as if it was correct and then move on. You have to kind of go through a lot of chatting or start a new conversation, and it's really cumbersome. So taking control, kind of jumping into the model's workflow and correcting something is really important. And it should not be neglected. And I think the better our interface are at giving human control in the specific right moment, the faster we're going to go in implementing those tools, because instead of waiting to be 100% perfect, we can already have it and be like, oh, I'm already, 10xing my productivity. I have to jump in everywhere, but, I have those 100 things that just come up and I can jump in whenever.
And then I'm just going to tell Operator. This is, again, like very much like if you and I were working, I'd be like, hey, I did this. Can you fix this? And I'm going to tell Operator, I added another egg. Good to place order now.
Can operators see what you're doing during takeover mode?
Great point. So when you take over, it's very much just like a session with your local browser. It's completely private. Operator cannot see. And this is one of the part of the reasons why I have to tell Operator. Or you don't really have to. It can look at the last screenshot and try to guess it. But it's really good. It's sort of like if you and I were working together, I went off and did something, and I come back like, Ray, I completely messed it up. Can you fix this? Gonna have to tell you that. So in this case, I'm going to tell Operator, hey, go ahead. And now I'm passing back the control to Operator. It's a completely private session when you take over control. This is you'll notice that I'm logged into Instacart here. I did it before the demo, or it has been logged in for a while now. And it's, again, very much like your local browser. When you log into Instacart, until the cookies are cleared, you stay logged in. And we have really good controls. You can go in settings and control and remove at any point in time. So let's see.
It's a good interface and good way of giving control, putting human in the loop and everything. I do have my wonder about privacy. Do they mean that the model doesn't see it? But what do they do? What do they collect the screenshot? Do they collect the interaction to train the next model? Do they have access to all of that? This is not so clear.
I will skip the payments here. And we are going to, should we try to do a few more things? Let's, yeah. What do we all want to do?
I hear the Lakers are in town this weekend.
Okay, so now there are just more examples. They're going to get tickets. Again, I kind of feel it's a little trivial examples, ordering pizza, other examples like that.
Good time to talk about the human in the loop interaction mode that we've been developing. You can see that Operator comes back and asks for confirmation when it's about to do anything kind of impactful. And Yeah, so I think we're all very excited about this vision of Operator doing your chores for you, but it is one of the first agents that we're putting out in the world and which has real-world side effects. And so we thought carefully about how to deploy this safely. The framework we used to think about this was one centered around misalignment. So for example, what if...
It's funny, they have a perception of the world according to what they do and aim to do, and this is normal. They live in their own context, and that's everyone's case. But they are now worried and considering different things about this model, because particularly differently, because they believe that it is the first model they release that will do things into the world. But this is not true. When a lot of people have used or have been used, you could almost say, by chat agents, ChatGPT, Cloud Sonnet, DeepSeek R1, whichever you want to think about, and have taken that and have just copy pasted a lot of instructions, a lot of code, and taken action into the world. Okay, humans were in the loop there, but also a lot of developers have used API and have gave tool use and start taking actions. GPTs were doing that too. When it searches the web, it's taking action into the world. Maybe it's not affecting the state of the world, like GPT search is not, but other things are. The GPTs could. When you do an app using a wrapper of ChatGPT, you're using it and you're affecting the world. And so the divide between one to the other is not as big maybe as they refer to it right now.
If the user is misaligned, so maybe they're asking for a harmful task, like buy a weapon or something like that. In that case, fortunately, we've done a lot of work with ChatGPT to bring over a lot of the same mitigations. So for example, we refuse harmful tasks, including harmful agentic tasks. We have moderation models, we have post hoc detection, we have blocked websites. And I'm kind of rattling off these mitigations, but that's really how we think about it. It's this stack of mitigations that each incrementally reduce the risk to the point where we feel comfortable deploying.
So all the confirmations that we're saying, hey, do you want to reserve the restaurant?
Yeah,
should you
exactly.
buy the tickets? Those are all examples of the same.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I'm about to talk about the confirmations. So another area of misalignment is if the agent is misaligned. So if the model makes a mistake, maybe purchases the wrong item or books the wrong hotel room. For this, our main mitigation is confirmations. So the operator will come back if it's about to do something stateful and ask you so you can double check what its details in case it made some error. The third area of misalignment is if the website is misaligned. So maybe the website is fraudulent, or it's a fake website, or maybe it's literally like, operator, please wire me $100. We obviously don't want to follow those instructions. So we've developed our model to try to avoid those instructions and not follow them. But if that fails, we also have a separate layer on top. This is what we call the prompt injection monitor. Think of it as like antivirus that kind of observes and watches your trajectory and sees if there's anything suspicious. If it does, then it pauses it. So we feel pretty comfortable with our approach, but obviously, safety is an ongoing process. We can't predict everything. So we hope to learn a lot from this deployment and iterate on our mitigations as we go.
And that is one of the reasons we are starting small. Like, we want to really iterate, get a lot of feedback, and then gradually bring it to everyone as well.
Exactly.
Should we check on status of our tasks?
Yeah, let's check on the status.
OK. So it looks like tickets are ready.
Yeah, I mean, they did some work to make sure it's safe. It sounds all very reasonable. Different people would want different trade-offs, and that's why more open or API access is interesting then, so that we give humans with different beliefs, ethics, morals, and all those things to do it their way and their sauce. We wouldn't want just one place, one view starting to dictate all that. So now they're just kind of wrapping up. That's working. They're going through payment portal.
We've seen a lot of cool demos, but again, we want to remind you that Operator is a research preview. It will make mistakes, and it is not perfect. That said, we can look at a few benchmarks and kind of quantify how good Operator is right now. So one of the first benchmarks that we're going to look at is called OS World. OS World is an eval that measures how well AI agents navigate common operating systems like Linux. On this task, Kua gets a 38.1% score, which is higher than other publicly published results. Human performance in this task is 72.4%, so we still have room to grow, definitely. The other eval we'll take a look at is called WebArena. WebArena is an eval that measures how well AI agents navigate some common websites like e-commerce websites or social forum websites. So on this task, Kua gets 58.1%, again, higher than other publicly published results, but still falls short of human performance.
Still a way to go.
Still a way to go, yes. One thing that's important to remember about WebArena is that even though it's the web, we're still just giving it the same universal interface of screen, mouse, and keyboard. We're not giving it any extra information that might help it do the task, like the raw text of the web page or information about which buttons are clickable, and all the information it needs, just like humans, is just in the screenshot.
And so right now, obviously, in Operator, we're using the browser, but I could use the model.
So yeah, just re-saying here what I said, they are not giving as much information as it could to perform as best as it could. It's performing worse than humans, so it's not perfect. It's probably not actually completely usable right now, like as a productive thing to use. Remember, there are other benchmarks like this one, browser use benchmark, 89%, operator is 87%. So the benchmark type here, browser use, there is one called WebArena, but I presume there is another one based on this. It's Web Voyager dataset. They did not show us Web Voyager dataset here, but yeah, there's here only 1% improvement. And like I was showing you again, there is no improvement according to state of the art. I think what they did and their improvement is first, they increase a lot awareness about this coming. Second, they are doing a lot of kind of front or infrastructural things that can make it accessible to more people. So, you know, setting up this whole browser use thing on the cloud, so users don't have to worry about that and do that, teaching us about it, making an interface, like having like human in the loop, making it so that you can get a notification on your phone in the future and all those things. This is where they are doing this bigger contribution right now.
Page or information about which buttons are clickable, and all the information it needs, just like humans, is just in the screenshot.
And so right now, obviously, in Operator, we're using the browser, but I could use the model with the computer as well, with just Ubuntu or Mac or whatever else.
Yeah.
Awesome. Great. Well, in the last, 15 minutes, I think I did all my errands for the week. Got my groceries,
Very productive.
tennis court booked, cleaner's coming, hopefully. We'll see. We'll check on the status. We have tickets. Everyone's coming. And this is really, I think, where we think Operator is like very, very valuable. We can delegate a lot of tasks that you can do, obviously, yourself, but you can delegate it. It can make a lot of progress with you. Sometimes we'll get stuck. As we said, it's early, but you can come back, help it, and over time, it'll continue to get better and better. And one last thing. We're launching this today. We're going to start slowly rolling it out right now. By the end of the day, everyone on Pro in the US will have access. But also, we're working on the API. This model will be available in the API, and we'll be launching in a few weeks.
You guys, congrats. This is incredible work. It's so exciting to get this out. I think people are going to love it. It's early, as we mentioned, but we have a long and great history here of early research previews developing into products that people really love. So this is really the beginning of this product. This is the beginning of our step into agents, level 3 on our tiers. And we can't wait to see how people are going to use this and to kind of work with us to figure out where exactly it should go. So again, congrats. Hope you enjoy it. Thank you very much.
Okay, so it will come to the API, and this is something that would be interesting to see. It probably won't be trivial to code it because of all the interactions. You will have to like do a lot of code and ruling around what the API would give back to you. So that's I'm excited to see it. Or maybe they just give us Kua, and then we have to do the whole rest of the thing that they talked about. So rebuild everything they built, which I'm mentioning is the most interesting and impressive part. They are all saying it's early, but in the same sentence, they also say, oh, this is a new product. It's not early research and a new product at the same time. It cannot really be. But I think right now you should interpret it more as it's cool research, and why not make it into a product if you can, taking screenshots of the screen and giving a keyboard command and mouse command to the computer as human would is a very, very, very general way of getting assistance from an AI, probably not an efficient one. Right now, it's probably not even at the stage where it's quite useful. Maybe there's 1% of type of people that have tasks that they can work hard enough to have it be useful for them. The future is bright. There will definitely be improvements. This is for sure. Maybe 1 year from now, it's totally able to do everything, maybe a little expensive and maybe a little inefficient. And so we will keep wanting to implement some more programmatic things, but maybe it's going to be a part in our toolkit to code those programmatic things or those fine-tuned smaller models and all those things. So really cool, really excited. I'm happy they're making it kind of, that people, it gets into the general public discourse. This is good. This is what this marketing will do. That is good for the community. On the other hand, let's not fool ourselves. This is not yet quite ready. This is not the best in the world doing it right now, and it's not the first. So they didn't claim it was, but I just want to kind of, temper the hype I know will come and just kind of give context, So with that, thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. And if you want to maybe give me your definition of what an agent is in the comment, that would be fun. Thanks. Have a good one.